Okay, let's see here. All right. We are live. Now, let's see here. This is a new thing for me. We're going to see if we can make this work because I have my presentation all ready to go. And the only thing is I don't know if I know. I'm not super familiar with this particular piece of technology. I am looking to show you guys my screen because I did not set that up correctly. Give me a moment. Let's see here. Create a clip from the video, publish the poll. Hey everybody, this is Dr. Fisher here. We are set up for the class this evening, except for I'm having just some quick minor technical difficulties, so if you could just bear with me just for a minute. Let's see here. Because I am trying to get my screen to come up so that you can see my screen. Let's see here. Stream. Okay, here. So I need to stream my screen. So what I may end up doing here, I hate to do this, but I may end up popping off really quickly and seeing how the screen share is not working for me right this very second. So that's such a bummer. I have a beautiful presentation prepared for all y'all this evening. Very excited for that. In the comments, really quickly, while I'm trying to figure this out, does anybody know how to screen share once you are live on Facebook? This is a new issue for me. Normally, there's just a little button that I can screen share. So bear with me for just a moment. I promise the content is good. Comments, live tab. So I'm on the live part. Can you guys hear, real quick, can you guys hear me okay? Anybody make any comments here? Can you guys hear me all right? All right. Can you guys hear me okay? So this is my new setup in my office. So I'm dealing with some technical difficulties here. Landon. Awesome, Landon. Thank you very much. Okay. So Landon, faithful Landon is working on that for me. So what I'm going to start with tonight, you guys, is I have, just like everybody else, struggled and really, worked with a whole bunch of different ideas and topics in relation to how to be successful for the new year, right? And so the topic for tonight, can you guys hear me okay? Just to double check, this is the first time I'm using my little microphone here. And so I tested it earlier, but again, this is the first time we're going live ever. Landon, if you could just send me a link really quickly as to where I can find that information, because I can do my presentation, but it's just going to be so much cooler with you guys if you can see my screen. So, again, today's topic is how to make effective goals, standards, and or challenges that will stick with you in the new year, okay? So, and I'm your host, Dr. Cy Fisher, and I'm excited to be here. So we're going to discuss all kinds of different ideas because there are so many different modes of thinking and thought out there as to what works, what doesn't. We're going to be talking about some pitfalls, why oftentimes New Year's resolutions, for example, don't work, what gets in your way, typical goals, those sorts of things. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just proceed along in my little presentation. So I know you guys can't see it, but I have a really cool little graphic. And what it was is I was just scrolling through my Facebook today and looking at all the different things that people had for their New Year's resolutions. And I have this fun little graphic. It's big and yellow and very boisterous, and it says, I'm going to accomplish blank in 2022, right? How many of you can relate to that? right? Now, we're going to be talking about a couple of different things that really tend to get in our way. Now, the nice part, I guess, if nothing else, is that just like with other things that get in our way, like New Year's resolutions, since I can't necessarily show you my screen necessarily, we're going to just run with it, okay? So there's going to be, I still have my outline, and so we're just going to run with that today. Okay, so looks like we've got several of you here today. So one of the things I wanted to start talking about is, again, this idea of we're going to start defining and breaking out these ideas. What are goals? What are standards and or commitments? What are challenges? What are resolutions? Okay, because it's really important for us to understand those basic concepts and ideas. So when I think of a goal, for example, it's a general idea. Now, we're going to get into the details and whatnot, but when I think of goals, I think of they're more future looking. They are, it's really important oftentimes where people lose sight of how to use a goal and how to interact with a goal. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to try and keep this to about a half an hour today, guys. Just so you know. Any luck, Landon, on finding out how once I start a Facebook Live? Anybody else can comment, by the way, here. Once I start a Facebook Live, how I can figure out how to show you my screen. So like I said, I have a really cool, I've got a few more people that have jumped in here. I've got a really cool presentation I would love to show you guys. So again, we're talking about this idea of goals, okay? So then we're going to talk about standards, okay? What is a standard? When I think of a standard, I think that it's a little more firm, right? Oftentimes standards are a little more like, they're like a program in the background. So when I think of standards, they're more firm, right? Like for example, myself, I'm in a place in life where it's like, my standard is I'm not going to change my oil in my car anymore, okay? I'm going to have somebody else do it, right? $30 at Walmart or wherever I go, it's just not worth it for me anymore. So my standards are that somebody else is going to do that for me. We're also going to talk about challenges and different ways to utilize challenges. Now, challenges, you've maybe heard of them as things like sprints, right? Or like again, like a 10-day challenge, a 7-day challenge, a 30-day challenge. Now, in the comments, what I would love to see you guys do is actually comment. Like, which ones do you guys actually use during the year? Like, what have you used? Have you used standards? Have you tried challenges? Have you tried goals? Love for you guys to comment. And just out of curiosity, are the comments, I think I've set it up where everybody can see the comments, so hopefully you guys are okay commenting here. So, anybody? What do you guys usually use? Goals? Who's done goals? By just put a thumbs up. If you've done goals before, give me a thumbs up. Okay? And some of you are actually messaging me on my cell phone, which is actually a little more distracting. So let's do this. What I want to do is I want to talk now, since I can't figure out this screen. We're just going to run into the content that I've created for you guys. So as I'm working with patients and as I've worked with my own self, I've run into different challenges, right? So I want to help give you guys, again, the framework of how to be successful with your with your specific challenges, changes, first part of the new year, right? One of the things that I see most people doing, a couple of things that I see, is people don't set realistic goals, which we're going to talk about, maybe some baby steps, things that get in your way. And then over time, the idea is to not just have this affect you in the short term. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, okay? Those of you who've worked with me know that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Honestly, weight loss is very important, and it's a very important part of health, but it's one of the things that drives me absolutely batty, because oftentimes when people do a program, that program is just for just a very short period of time, and while that can be super helpful, honestly, it's like grading fingers on a chalkboard, because what oftentimes happens is people yo-yo, right? And they go back to where they were before, or are even worse off, and they have tons of shame around it, and it makes it more and more difficult, because then there's a bunch of charge on there. So the goals, if you're going to use goals, right? So goals can be helpful, but they need to be realistic. All right? Let's see here. PTS time. Planning, thinking, and studying every day. Fantastic, Shirley. Challenges. Awesome. Yeah, so a lot of you have used challenges. And I love challenges, but it's really important to realize that just like driving a car is great for transporting people, it's not great for transporting wood, right? You wouldn't necessarily load up wood in the back of a car. So it's really important to understand the little small nuances if you want to be successful. For example, if you're going to set a goal, to understand kind of the container that you're putting your desire into, okay? So we're going to jump to a couple more ideas of how to be successful with these changes. And if you noticed, the words that I am saying specifically are how to be successful with change. Okay, so we're using this out of the context of it's the new year, right? But what do you really want? Why are you setting goals? Why are you even interested in these challenges or these sprints, right? In my mind, for my own self, I think of what I do is I'm in the change business. My goal is to help change people, environments, situations, so that they can be removed from their pain and suffering, and that they can see what it was that got them there in the first place, and help them be able to in the long run, be able to be healthy and maybe make some different choices. So another way to make these changes successful is to be able to have support, right? By raise of hands or thumbs up or whatever, who has done a group challenge or a group sprint or group goals? Yeah, absolutely. Handling stress and anxiety in a better way. Yeah. So again, what we want to do is I like to take a step back and understand the goal. The goal behind the goal, in my mind, is to understand that we want to make some changes, right? So, we have on our Facebook, for those of you who like and follow us, see that we put out a lot of fun little tips. Thank you, Tim, for making that happen. And one of the recent ones that was put out, and I just thought it was really great for this, it's a stress management tip. And it says, don't let fear hold you back. Dealing with stress is better than living with it, okay? So how does that deal with goals? How does that relate to this idea of change? Well, in a general sense, right, there are so many different things that then get in our way of making changes. And so, yes, at the beginning of the year, it's like a new start, a fresh beginning, okay? But I really want you guys to understand the underlying component of how I think of what we're trying to accomplish today. I think of it more of like, okay, so what are some unwanted circumstances as I think about this last year have I participated in? What have I done that's gotten me into those unwanted circumstances? So really some common ones, right, that people say about the new year disable them from actually accomplishing anything. And what do I mean by that? Okay? What I mean is when you say you're going to set a goal for the new year, for example, let's just say lose weight. I want to lose weight. Everybody wants to lose weight. I want to run 20 miles, right? I want to do 1,000, I'll be honest, I want to do 1,000 push-ups in a day. Okay? Now, I'm crazy. That's just me. Right? But there's other things like I want to go to the gym. What are some like just off the wall ideas that you guys have done? Like goals that you've set that are totally unrealistic and that a lot of other people have participated in. Throw into the comments. I'd love to see some of your goals, right? So, and as I'm waiting for you guys to write in the goals here, um, again, I want to be very specific. You heard people say, I want to lose weight. I want to go to the gym. I want to go outside more. I want to, oftentimes one of the difficulties is the goal is too big. I want to own the United States, right? That's the equivalent of this idea of I want to lose weight, okay? It doesn't have enough context. It's not small enough. And in the office, many of you who work with me know I like to use the term, it's an elephant, right? We just literally put an elephant on our chest. And as I work with a patient this morning, they help me realize when I say elephant, I also mean charge. We oftentimes put a charge on a situation that disables us. It becomes too heavy for us to actually make any forward progress on it. Now, if you think about the context of, for example, losing weight, so many of us want to lose weight. We've been sitting at COVID, we're feeling fat and lazy, and our joints hurt, and we're just not motivated, especially this time of year, right? But if we take that idea of lose weight, okay, and we break it into smaller chunks, and we realize that we said that out of probably desperation, and we didn't break it into small enough pieces, right? Because the general idea is, yes, losing weight is a very noble and helpful goal if you want to consider it a goal or an idea. It's more of an idea than a goal. I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with. They say, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or I want to do this, and that's their goal. Well, really, that's not a goal. That is an idea. Okay? A goal is something that's going to be the how, what, where, why that's going to allow you to get to that place. Now, oftentimes when I'm working with people, patients in general, one of the most important ideas that I like people to understand, and this is something that I was just recently reiterated on, was the idea that if you can see it in your mind, then you can do it. If you can't see it happening in your mind, it's probably too big, and or you've got a bunch of charges, or you don't have the resolve, you don't have the commitment, you don't have the pain, you don't have the suffering, you don't have the necessary energy and drive and desire to be able to accomplish what that goal is. Right? That's like saying for a person who doesn't lift weights to go in and say, hey, why don't you go bench press 225 pounds? Whoa! That's impossible if a person hasn't done anything to be able to get to that point in time. Okay? And so what we can do is we can say, okay, well, that clearly is a charged statement because it's clearly a self-sabotaging statement, and I'm not going to make it there because it's also an unrealistic expectation. But if we say, I'm going to go and learn how to do a push-up, okay? That's the thing, right? I want to go learn how to do a push-up because I think that that's going to help me lose weight. Okay, well, there's tons of YouTubes, for example, right? And you start where you are. A big part in which I see people have a hard time with is they have a hard time seeing themselves. They don't know where they are. They don't know what a realistic expectation is for themselves. And unless you've done some self-work, and that's in many forms. That's meditation, prayer, counseling, energy work, whatever it is, you've got to be able to see yourself, right? If I give you my car keys and we're at an airport and there's 10,000 cars and I just give you my car keys and say, hey, here you go grab my car, please. What? Right? That's going to be almost impossible to do. But if we have specifics and we have a realistic kind of container that we put these ideas in. So we start with an unwanted circumstance, right? I don't like how I feel. I don't like the direction my life is going. I don't like how my joints hurt. I don't like that I can't play on the ground with my grandkids anymore. I don't like that I can't jump on the trampoline anymore. I'm just speaking from patients that I've talked to recently. I don't like being sick all the time. I don't like being tired all the time. I don't like being depressed all the time. Whatever your unwanted circumstance is at this year, as you look back and you reflect on your past, to be able to take that and put it into a container, call it what you will, a goal, a commitment, and transform it. It has to start with something small. Okay? You have to have enough burning desire. So my business coach, Ode to You column, taught me a very important lesson about human psychology. We have to have enough pain, fear of pain, or a desire, and quite frankly, the majority of the people that I know, pains and or fears of pains are what 80% at least of the type of people that come and see me. Because there has to be enough pain to power the desire to have some sort of change. Okay? The work that I do is hard work. It's meaningful work. It changes people's experience with their lives. Okay? And that's something you can do too. Okay? I want you to understand we want to start in a small way. So just think about where you are right now. If you've been sitting on the couch on COVID for the last 2 years, and your joints hurt, your muscles hurt, and you haven't really walked much, and you're sitting and doing computer work because you're behind the desk, right? And that's your experience. To say I'm going to run a 5K for most people is too much of a charged experience. Now, with that being said, there's always exceptions to the rules, okay? So the general idea that I want you to understand is a realistic container, a realistic plan of action that will allow you to actually make some forward motion. Because we all get stuck in different ways, okay? But that plan needs to be specific. It needs to be something that you can actually accomplish. So for example, I'll give you an example of one that I use on a very regular basis. I don't commit people to go to the gym 3 days a week. I don't commit people to do these crazy intense things. Most of the time, my commitment is to get that person to work into being kind to themselves and to work on having a desire to get up and move, right? It's like, okay, take 5 minutes and work on a gratitude journal in the morning, because that's going to get you up and going. And then once you get up and going, for example, then you have the energy to actually maybe do the walking that you want to accomplish. Now, it's a secondary component. Sometimes a more direct interaction is going to be more effective, right? So maybe you do set your goal that you're going to walk every day. And then you use all the different tools that you have, as long as it's a realistic goal, right? So, for example, if I'm going to set an expectation for a person of the fact that I know that they've been not moving at all for the last 2 years with COVID, what we're going to do is we're going to set that expectation very, very low, okay? And that's going to look like once a week, 5 to 10 minutes walking down to the mailbox. Why do I set that goal so low? Well, one of the main reasons is because that's a relatively simplistic goal. That's going to be something that I have a conversation with that person, which means you're going to have a conversation with yourself. Okay? Is this something realistic that I can do? Do I have enough energy to actually get up and get working through this? Because there's going to be a little pain and suffering that goes along with it. Okay? But one of the most important things that you can understand is if you make the small progress, if you've been sitting for 2 years and now you're out walking to the mailbox once or twice a week, and your brain starts getting dopamine hits and you start getting a little rewiring and you start feeling better, and you're like, wow, I did this, okay? You get those little wins, okay? Then you're able to start making some forward progress. We have to have forward progress because we tend to get in our own way. So again, what gets in the way? Our pain, our fears of pain. Okay? Or what oftentimes will get in the way is we do some of our own self-sabotaging, and our inner critic gets in the way, undercuts us, drains our energy, so it makes it impossible for us to be able to move forward. Right? Who's had that happen? Oh, this is great. Yes. 100 push-ups. Yeah. So I got to tell you guys, not to brag on myself here. I love physical activity. I'm more of a weight training kind of guy. Okay. So recently we did a weight training challenge. So this is just an experiment for all of you, right? So if you want to have that unwanted circumstances give you the drive and desire to do something, right? So I felt like I haven't been as committed to my physical fitness in the last little while. I knew the holidays were coming up. I needed a little something to kind of get me going. So the unwanted circumstance was slowing down on my fitness over the holidays, okay? So what I did is I actually watched a video which gave me some inspiration and gave me some drive and desire to say, hey, I want to do a 100 push-ups a day challenge, okay? And that's not at one time, it's throughout the day. So then my mom was here, okay? And so what happened was she's like, hey, this is a great idea. She took it home, and then she texted like 15 family members. And then all of a sudden, I had this commitment to my mom and my wife, and then it was like to all these 17 other people that I was going to do 100 push-ups a day, right, for 30 days, which I'm excited to say. At the end of it, it was amazing. I feel great doing 100 push-ups a day, okay? So for me, that's fairly realistic. I've loved doing push-ups since I was in high school. That was something I did in high school. I knew it was something I could do again, right? Qualify for the Boston Marathon. That's hardcore, Melanie. See, I'm not a runner, so that doesn't sound too exciting for me. Simple things like Monica's talking about cutting out sugar. Okay, so you have to be, again, I'm going to use this one, Monica, if that's okay with you. I'm going to use this we're going to put this into the container, right? So what's the unwanted circumstance around sugar? Okay, so I'm going to just use my own self as an example, right? So here, a couple months ago, I love ice cream. As many of you know, ice cream is my warm childhood nostalgia sort of situation. And so I was eating ice cream a little bit every day, and I was starting to get a little bit of a belly. And so I decided I wanted to work with myself with this idea of I didn't want to have the belly anymore, and I didn't want to be so reliant on the sugar component. So I did a 10-day blood sugar reset. And it changed everything, right? It was something I've done before. I knew I could do it again. I committed to myself. The pain was enough to drive me into doing it. And I was committed. I got the gear. Natalie, my wife, helped me set everything up, and we did it. Okay? And then the next piece was the 100 a day push-ups. Okay? So there's little small steps along the way. So I'm feeling right now in the best condition that I have felt probably since COVID started. Okay? My goal, again, is to help you guys understand you have the capability of making these changes. Call it goals. Now, I do want to talk about the nuance of a standard. I like the idea of standard. So my new standard for myself, for example, after this 100 a day, 30 day, 100 a day push-up challenge has been, my new standard is I do 100 push-ups a day. I usually do 50 in the morning, between 50 and 75 before I kind of get up and going. It's pretty simple at this point in time. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be simple for you if you've never done a push-up, right? But I'm starting where I am, and now I've made this my new standard to do that every day. Okay, so it's really important to understand that goals, or the intention behind goals, if you can make them small enough, make the progress, allow yourself to commit to it, give yourself the little bit of resolve, commitment, and reward yourself along the way with that inner feeling of I've accomplished these little small goals, it will allow you to move forward. Okay, that little small progress gives you those little small simple wins. Helps you work through the pains, fears, and desires. Okay? And another key important piece here that I want to throw in there, and I'm going to end here pretty soon, is if you want to be successful with whatever your unwanted circumstance, there's lots of different ways to do it. But one of my favorites is to write on a piece of paper or a sticky or in your bathroom or in different places. what you're trying to attain, right? So to be able to get into the headspace of being able to see what you're trying to obtain. I'll be honest, one of my next goals is to do 1,000 push-ups in a day. And my last day, I was inspired by a book. My last day of doing the 100 push-up a day challenge, I was able to do 500 push-ups in a day. Now, I finished the last few at 11:45 at night, okay? And again, I'm a crazy fitness person. I like to push myself in some certain ways. But my next goal, if you want to call it a goal, and I can see it in my mind, is to do 1,000 push-ups in a day. Okay? So I'm able to clearly identify and see in my mind what I want to accomplish. Okay? And then I know what the steps are that are going to be necessary for me in order to be able to obtain that. And I'm going to do these little small pieces that are going to reward my brain to get me there. I've already done 500 push-ups once. So I know that over the next 30 days, which is kind of my next window, I'm probably going to do that 2 more times and then push it to that next layer. Okay? So small steps. See your inner critic. See those elephants that you put on yourself. See the charge that might get in your way. Okay? And track your performance. Now, for me, like I said, with the weight loss. Now, this is where some of these nuances make a difference. Now, if tracking your weight, okay, becomes such a charge that you quit, then it's too heavy. It was too big of an elephant. It was too big of a jump. You were trying to put, okay, like I mentioned before, you're trying to put wood in the back of your car. You need a truck, okay? You've got to change the container in the way that you looked at this thing. There's too many things getting in the way, okay? Now, let's see here. So the general idea here is that I want you guys to be able to understand how these ideas can actually make, when you look at a goal, attainable. Okay, I want you to be able to change this next year and apply these changes in a way that are actually going to be sustainable. Now, anybody can do anything for a short amount of time. We've all heard that, right? We've all heard that term because that's true. But in the long haul, that's where it becomes more difficult, okay? The white knuckling approach only works for a certain period of time, and then there's too much energy drain, okay? Now, I'm thinking, originally, I wanted to be able to, again, present this to you guys. And then I also wanted a little document that I have, and I couldn't find it before this meeting, which basically is, in the document, it's a beautiful picture that tells you kind of the different stages of health, right? The absence of disease does not mean that you're healthy. Right? And in many ways, you define your own level of healthy, right? So at this new year, my line of health, or my line of work, is health. My line of work is helping a person be able to identify whatever it was that they came in, whatever that unwanted circumstance is, help them identify right where they are and help them find the path of least resistance to a place where they want to be, right? I'm a guide. I'm a coach, if you will. And knowing where you are in your place of health oftentimes is a very charged statement or question. So what I want to leave you guys with this evening is maybe a desire to maybe sit with yourself a little bit and really try and dive into some unwanted circumstances for yourselves. What are some things this year that you haven't liked about what's happened this last year? Maybe it's very simple. It's going to be, I don't like the gut that I have. I don't like the fact that I've not been active. I don't like the fact that I'm not connected to people the way that I was before, or that I'm depressed, or whatever that looks like. Okay? And I want you to chop it up into the smallest little place that you can and set a very realistic, low expectation of yourself. Give yourself an appropriate time commitment. I love the statement, and many of you have heard this, but Tony Robbins, I famously remember him saying, we tend to overcommit ourselves in the short run and have too high of an expectation in the short run. And in the long run, we can move forward. We can move mountains more than we ever thought we could in the long term, right? So my goal for you guys this evening is to help you understand whether you want to call it goals, whether you want to use a sprint, understand the container that you're using. Do you want to do something in the short term because, maybe losing a few pounds in the short term is where you're at, and that's what you want. And beyond that is too much. And that's okay. That's okay. As long as you understand that that's what you want. Okay, if that's what you want. If you want something different, if you want a longer lasting change over time, if you're doing the same thing that you did last year or the year before expecting different results, we all know that that is the definition of insanity. So I suggest to you that you slow down, that you allow yourself to evaluate some unwanted circumstances that may make you want to, quote unquote, set a goal or do some things that allow you to change this new year. Start small. Start in a realistic perspective. Now, another thing that I've talked to a few people about doing possibly is maybe making a Facebook group where we can have our commitment of the change that we're trying to accomplish this year. Does that sound like something of interest to anybody? I haven't taken the time to actually do it yet. It's fairly simple, right? This would be where the group would come into play. So, for example, when I did the challenge with my mom and my wife, right, I had a group that I was accountable for and was supported by. Now, the difficulty that I find in this particular setting is probably we're not specific enough in the idea of the goal that we're setting. Now, I could make a general Facebook group. Does that sound like of interest to anybody? Thumbs up. If not, that's okay. Private message me. That sounds good. Okay. So what I'm going to do maybe, I'm not sure if my IT guy, Tim, is here tonight, but what I'm going to have him do is I'm going to have him make a Facebook group for me. Or Landon, if you're still on, if you want to pop a Facebook group together for me about making changes, right? I got to be honest, guys. I love the idea of a commitment to change group. Okay, I'm going to write that down, okay? Commitment to change. Let's see here. I'm going to get out of my stuff here so I can make my own notes here. Commitment to change group, okay? Because the general idea is commitment to change. The general idea is, what are you wanting? You have something you didn't want or you don't want to continue doing. The goal is to be able to figure out what will enable you to change, okay? So what we talked about today should give you a little more insight as to how to change. Now, what I've decided to do is I'm going to go ahead and have a follow-up half-an-hour meeting next Wednesday at about the same time. So if that's something of interest, you want to follow up with this and or you're interested in my little handout, which also comes with a diet diary to kind of check in with yourself and really see where you are, especially after the new year. That's a great place to be, to really get a feel for how addicted you've become to sugar and how much crap you're eating after the holidays, right? How messed up your blood sugar is and whatever else, if you can handle it. So we're going to be doing that again next. Use that for a t-shirt slogan. Oh, that's beautiful, Gina. Thank you. So I'm going to throw in a little shameless plug here. That commitment to change. We actually, funny that you say that, we actually started a little apparel line. And we put up our first t-shirt and hoodie on the wall today. And it says, what would Dr. Fisher say? Okay. And the reason for that and the reason why I love that is my goal is to enable you to change. Okay. So we're definitely going to put that on a t-shirt, okay? Because I want to see you guys be able to take these ideas that I've shared with you today, take them to heart, sit with yourself, have that conversation, see what you didn't like from this last year, make a little small resolve, put into place a little small change that will enable you to be a different person this next year, okay? And share it with us. Come back next Wednesday or Tuesday, we're Tuesday, at 5:30, and I should have the documents made up by then. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the topics I will recover just in a short 5-minute stint, what we covered this evening, and go to the next step. Talk about some of the additional pieces that get in your way, and talk about some ideas and some useful tips that will help you in the short term and or some long-term approaches. So anybody up for that? Thumbs up. Anybody interested in coming back and having a further chat with me on this idea of change, commitment? And the beauty of that is, remember, my perspective of helping you get to change is that becomes your new standard. Your walking, the way in which you're moving, your headspace, your physical body, your physique, your, whatever. Generally speaking, it's health stuff, right? That you allow yourself to make these changes in a way that allows you to make this your new standard. Awesome. So we will go ahead and set that up again for next week. I hope you all enjoyed today's message. We're going to come back and do it again next Tuesday. And if we get a regular following on something like this, I got to be honest, guys, I love sharing my ideas. I love sharing my philosophies. I love sharing what works for me as I work with people in the clinic. So if you like what we do, put a thumbs up on today's meeting, share it with friends and family. If it can make a change in their lives, this is what we're looking for, is that ability to help people be better this next year. So this is Dr. Fisher. Appreciating all of you for coming. Next week I should be able to figure out, the logistics of the electronic pieces here. We'll run with it. Everybody, have a happy new year, and we'll talk to you again soon. Dr. Fisher, signing out.